crisis of our time and the greatest challenge we have faced since World War II. Since its emergence in Asia late last year, the virus has spread to every continent except Antarctica and has changed the course of our daily lives. But this pandemic is so much more than just a health crisis. It is also an unprecedented socio-economic crisis. As of August 28, 2020, 3.46 million positive cases have been reported in India itself. And during the lockdown, an estimated 14 crore people lost their jobs, while salaries were cut for many others. However, several reforms are underway and others are in the pipeline. It is just as Aristotle said, there is an opportunity in every crisis. One can only hope that India takes it. So to delve deep into the impact that the COVID is having on different spheres in India, today we have with us an esteemed panel of speakers. Over to you, Lavanya.
Thank you, Arushi. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Mrs. Meenakshi Kushwaha, Principal of Birla Vidya Niketan, who is here to talk about the education sector, Dr. Anurag Agnihotri, Assistant Professor in Delhi University, who will tell us about the current situation of the capital market, Ms. Aarti Arora, Chartered Accountant, who will make us aware about the infrastructure sector, Mr. Pankaj Doval, Senior Editor of the Times of India, who will enlighten us about the manufacturing sector. And finally, we have with us Dr. Raghav Taneja, who is a civil servant who will represent the health sector.
Yes. I was not being unmuted, so sorry for the delay, but I thought I would like to introduce Raghav. Raghav, could we have your camera on, please?
Yes, ma'am. My camera's on, ma'am.
Yes. So a very warm welcome to you, Raghav, back to school. And let me tell you about your achievements. And of course, teachers say you were a wonderful student. So Raghav joined Birla Vidya Niketan in 1997. I think 3 years old or maybe 4. And then he grew up and he was the head boy of the primary school students council, 10 years old. And then he was the deputy head boy of the senior students council. I think 15, 16 years old. And during this time, Raghav bagged the prestigious NTSC scholarship. Congratulations to you for that. And along with all these things, he was a sports enthusiast. He would always love to play football. And I think he continued being the sports enthusiast, and he gradually became the writer also in the sports of the field. He was in the school football team, and he passed out in 2011, securing from school, that is class 12, securing 95% marks from CBSE. After school, he went to Maulana Azad Medical College and became a doctor. And last but not the least, he cleared the UPSC Civil Services Examination 2019 with All India rank 318. Raghav, a big congratulations to you. And we are so, so, so proud of your achievements. And cracking UPSC exam is not a simple thing. And I understand you've put in a lot of hard work. A lot of effort has gone in, not only of yours, but of the family also. And so would you throw some light on what were your subjects in the mains, and how was the journey after school? Over to you, Raghav.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind words. It's been an honor to be a part of the Birla family. And I spent around 14 years in that school. And a lot of good memories are associated with that school. After that, I went to Maulana Azad Medical College, and it's an honor to be a part of the medical fraternity. Not because I think being a doctor is considered a good thing in the society, but also the kind of vital life lessons which one gets while in the hospital, when the different kinds of social strata people which we interact with, and you get a real peek and a real insight into the workings and the of the society and also of the administration. Mainly because the hospital which I worked in, the Lok Nayak Hospital, is a daily government-run hospital, and it's the biggest daily government hospital, and we cater to people from all the strata, mainly the marginalized and the vulnerable sections of society. And somewhere down the line, we made aware of our privileges and our need to contribute back to the society. And after that, I passed out of that college, and the civil services, I wanted to do that because I felt that the scale is much bigger, the scope's much broader, and it offers a leadership role at a very young age. So I took the civil services journey. My optional subject in this was medical science only because I've studied the subject well, and I've always felt very comfortable with the medical life. So it's been a nice journey for me.
In hospital, I'm sure you've seen a lot of pain, people suffering, physical pain, mental pain, the relatives suffering because of somebody in the family suffering of any disease. And I'm sure this has changed all your mindset. And now you are a civil servant. So what is your vision to do for the society? And because you are at a very, very, very powerful position, you can do things. So how do you think yourself contributing towards this and blending it with your experience of hospital?
Ma'am, in my first year of my medical, when went into the medical school, one of my professors, Dr. N.S. Hadke, he was a surgery professor. In the inauguration in the initial classes, he told us that don't ever consider the major notion that we have in our society is doctor is considered next to God. So he told us that never, never ever consider yourself next to God, because that brings a degree of arrogance in you. So you have to contribute back to the society. And we have more than 56 crore people who are in absolute abject poverty in our country, and a lot needs to be done. So my vision as a civil servant is to ensure, in my capacity, the inclusive, sustainable, and equitable growth of our country. And I can't say that I believe that it's a full run machine, and everybody is a small part in it. And I'm more than willing to fulfill my responsibility in contributing back to my society and my nation. That's my vision.
Lovely. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And we have some of your teachers here. Of course, I couldn't have brought the entire staff here, but there are some teachers here who must have taught you. So to begin with, we have Aloka Bose ma'am. She must have taught you biology in classes 11th and 12th. Aloka, could we quickly see you? Okay, we'll get back to her. Then we have Vandana Behel ma'am. Vandana ma'am. All right. I think there's some issue. They are not visible. So anyways, students Arushi and Lavanya, I hand over to you to take the session forward.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, sir, like ma'am said, as head boy and in school, you used to participate in so many activities. So did it ever interfere with your studies? And is there any advice that you have for the students of today?
I think it is a way of looking at things. In the short term, you do sometimes feel that it's interfering with your studies, but once you grow older and once you mature, you realize the importance of those activities or that leadership opportunities which you get at a very young age. the way they contribute to the overall development of an individual, and it helps you understand the different dimensions and different facets of life in a much better way. Coming to the second part, what I would like to advise my juniors, the first thing I would be that always strive for balance. You mentioned a very great person in your initial part, Aristotle. He talked about golden mean is a virtue, is the key to all virtues. And you always need to strive for that balance. From Buddhist philosophy to your Greek philosophy and your Stoicism, everybody talks about finding that balance. So my advice would be always try to seek and strive to achieve that balance. Don't go for extreme positions or that the polarizations things. The second thing I would advise is that don't look over your shoulder too much. It's your own individual journey, and everybody has a different journey. So don't spend your time fretting over what somebody else's journey is. So that would be one major advice, because it's a very competitive environment all day round. So make your own mark. That would be my advice.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure we all will imbibe that, Nas, and that was very motivating. So, sir, as you have read and heard a lot about this pandemic, and yet it still remains a mystery. So, sir, could you please unravel this medical jargon behind this scourge called the COVID-19, please?
It would be wrong for any person or any scientist to claim that 6 months or 7 months or 8 months into the pandemic that we have understood the virus. We have known a little bit about the virus. We have understood something, but it would be very wrong to claim that we have understood it completely. So it's a virus which belongs to the coronavirus family. It's a group of 7 viruses which can infect humans. And the specific type of this virus, the coronavirus, the SARS coronavirus 2, the incubation period of this virus, the incubation period means that the timeline between the infection of that virus and the manifestation of symptoms, that is around 2 to 14 days. And the other thing is in India, what we currently are witnessing is that the number of mortalities, or what we have was mentioned initially also, it's around 3.4, 3.5 million. And we have lost around 63,000 people to but over the course of this pandemic, we have able to bring down the case fatality rate. Case fatality rate is the patients, the number of patients, the proportion of those patients who die. So the case fatality rate, we have been able to bring it down to around 1.8, which is a good achievement. I won't call it a great, but it's a good achievement. And also the thing which we call as the R, which you always see in the newspaper, the R or the R naught of that particular virus. That means that one single individual can infect how many people? So initially the R value, or the effective reproductive rate, which we call, was in the range of more than 2. Now we have been able to bring it down to 1.04. I'm talking about the country figure. So this is a rough idea of the virus. It's an RNA virus, and it's I think that would be more than enough. I think that will be going into too much of technical specifications.
So, sir, I'm a biology student, and I know that it takes a lot of time to come out with an effective vaccine. So, what are your views? Like Russia is claiming that it has already created the COVID vaccine, which is it has named it the Sputnik V. So, what do you say about that? Like, can it be true, and can it be made in such little amount of time?
So you are absolutely correct that the vaccine development, it's a multi-year process. It takes time, but these are unprecedented times. And so you need to do extraordinary steps. The timelines have to be shortened. You need to fast track the process. Now, coming to what Russia is claiming, there are actually 4 phases of the clinical trials of any vaccines. First, they are the animal testing, and then they are the clinical trials after the due ethical studies. There are basically 4 stages. The stage 1 and 2, Russia has done. Russia hasn't done stage 3 or phase 3 of the clinical trial, which is a very important step. The main purpose of having the main key parameters of deciding the success of a vaccine is its efficacy and its safety. And phase 3 of a clinical trial is very essential in determining that. Russia has administered the vaccine to around 76 patients in the first 2 phases. So it hasn't utilized the phase 3. And also, the results of the vaccine have not been published in a peer-reviewed journal. So it undermines its credibility a bit. Now, coming to India, there are a lot of companies and a lot of institutes who are striving to make that vaccine. The two main frontrunners at the moment are, one is the Serum Institute of India, which is based in Pune. It has promised to manufacture 1 billion doses of the University of Oxford vaccine, which is being manufactured in UK. It's a adenovirus viral vector vaccine, which they are manufacturing, and they have promised 1 billion doses. And the second major vaccine which we have in our country is the Bharat Biotech and the National Institute of Virology and the ICMR vaccine. Initially, there were plans that the vaccine might be introduced by August 15, but after deliberation and due consideration, there has been a revised timeline, and the Honorable Minister of Health and Family Welfare, Dr. Harshvardhan, said few days back that they are targeting an year end or early next year the vaccine. But I think since we are a democratic country and we follow the due deliberations, and ultimately the vaccine is seen as a boon for the people. So we can't let it become a bane for the people. So after effecting due consideration, the vaccine should be out. And I think the safety standards will be kept because we follow these things very stringently in our country.
True, sir, very true. And I also wanted to know that, can you please explain how exactly the COVID virus is different from the other viruses that makes it this deadly? Like, there must be something.
See, the thing about COVID virus is its novelty. It jumped from animal to human. There are multiple types of coronaviruses, and they have also infected us previously, be it the SARS virus or the MERS virus. But the SARS coronavirus 2 was the first. The type that infected us, it's happening for the first time. And so I would say it's like the immune system was not just ready for it. It took us by surprise, right? So that's what its novelty is about. Even if you look at the case fatality rate, it is around 1.8 or 2 annually. What we are talking about globally also in different geographies. If you look at something like a tuberculosis in our country, the case fatality rate is more than 10. And it's like we have 3 or 2.9 million cases every year, and we lose 3.5 to 4 lakh lives every year. So I won't call it a lethal virus. It's a new virus, and it just took us off guard. That would be it.
Thank you, sir. That was quite informative. And next we have with us Dr. Anurag Agnihotri. He is an eminent personality in the field of commerce. He has been working as assistant professor in the College of Vocational Studies, Delhi University for the past 13 years. He's also a prolific writer and has won many awards for his countless research papers. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Please, so kindly apprise us about the current situation of the capital market, sir.
Okay. See, the capital market, I will refer more of your economics, which you studied in 12th, being an academician, so that you can link what you're studying in the classroom is applicable in real world also. You have heard of a equation in economics, macroeconomics, which is called Y equals to C plus I, which says that the income is, national income is equals to the consumption and the investment. Now, what has happened with this COVID-19 situation in India, as rightly pointed out by the Raghav, that it has caught us by surprise. We were not prepared for that. Neither our infrastructure was prepared in the medical terms. We were in many parts of India, we do not have proper hospitals also. And in case of the industry also, industry was also not prepared. The reason was we have suffered a shock by the way of demonetization in 8th October 2016. Although that was initiated with the good reasons, but ultimately that has shattered the unstructured economy of India. And the result is that all MSMEs has gone and their business has gone down. So the employment rate has gone down. And just after that, the things have started by the GST. So GST was implemented, that the government was of the view that black marketing will be stopped and we can generate the more revenue by that. But the people in India always try to find out the ways, so they have come out with something called new companies, fake companies, and eBay builds scams so that they can get input credits. So these points you can learn more in future or some other discussion. So I'm not going to that side of that. So what has happened after this? This economy was down in the already in the second and third quarter of the 2019 and 20 financial year. When we entered into the Q4, all of a sudden, a new virus has come up, which we have never faced of it. And what this has done at this virus, this has put you into such a corner, it has pushed you that neither the government was having a response to it, nor the academician was having a response to it, nor the researchers were having a response to it, nor the medical fraternity were having, nor the industrialists. So everybody was at shock. And from there, the Prime Minister of India has taken a right decision in order to save the life of the countrymen, and he has said the lockdown. Now, when the lockdown was done, so what has happened to economy? Here, the Y equal to C plus I comes into the play. The Y is the national income of the country, and C is the consumption. The moment the lockdown was done, the whole economic cycle has stopped. The people's job has gone. No production was there. There is no demand was there. Hence, the consumption is out. The second is investment. Neither the government is having the money, nor the public has got the money. So neither of them is able to invest into the market also. So basically, this whole cycle has gone at a standstill, and that is why it is called as a black swan. This particular virus has stretched to more than 140 geographies of the world. And when it is started all over the world, from there, it is very difficult for the India to revive themselves in the initial phases. So we have gone to lockdown, and now slowly we are doing unlock from the 1st of June onwards. The unlock 4 process has been started. You people has to, you youths, it is very good. I congratulate Birla Vidya Niketan for getting a student like Raghav, who is a civil servant who will be making the future policies for India. So, but you people who are sitting as a student there, you should learn one word. Today we are living in a word called VUCA word. VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Why I'm saying this is a VUCA word? Generally, you read and you study in the finance field that when the GDP goes up, the stock market will go up because it is a mirror of that. But what is happening today? GDP is rock bottom, but the stock market is high. It is looking like that something stock market is not looking at the COVID-19 situation at all. Means the stock market is functioning from some other planet. Or they are over optimistic about the vaccine. They're feeling that the vaccine will come and everything will be over. No, it is not going to happen like that. The second, we always treat that the gold as a safer security. So when the stock goes up, the gold prices goes down. But what is happening today? The gold price is also up, the stock prices are also up, but economy is at the rock bottom. Then the second comes crude oil. Crude oil also at the rock bottom. So you are not able to link these parameters. The second part of it, how this unlock has happened, how will it treat the Indian economy? The way we are doing the business and the way we will do the business will change. The way we are teaching to you students and the way we will be teaching to you in the future will change. You might be seeing within next few years, there will be some virtual schools. So that sector need to be taken care of. And you are the students who has to take the skill set of that nature. The technology which were interfering to our economy and would have replaced many things, in 10 years time, it is going to replace those things within just 2 years time with this COVID-19 situation. Because if 2 years back, Meenakshi ma'am would have said that we will have an online seminar or online conference, I don't feel that that many of us who are the panelists today would have been comfortable doing with this Zoom and MS Office or the Google Meet. But today it has become new normal. I give you my example. During the last 6 months, I traveled virtually more than 86 countries, virtually, not physically. So, but otherwise it would have been that the only method, somebody is calling to a conference that you are going there and attending this. So this has changed the way you are going to do the business. So this is going to be an opportunity for the market, for the economy. The few companies will come into the play and few will vanish. You will see many companies will vanish when this COVID-19 effect will be over. The retail sector is reeling under pain. They are not having any customer. But Amazon is having, and the Flipkart is having a huge traffic on their websites. Jeff Bezos is becoming the richest person. Why? Because we are buying more, and because due to COVID-19, we do not want to go to the market. We feel there is a risk on that counter. So we just go online and order things. But what is happening? The retail person is not able to earn the money. So when this hit to India in March, the market has gone down. Nifty has, whatever the level students I'm giving it, it will be the Nifty levels. Levels means the price level of the Nifty. Nifty is the index of the National Stock Exchange, which is the market, which is one of the major stock exchange of India. We have got two functional stock exchange, Bombay Stock Exchange, and the index of that is Sensex. And for this NSE, it is a Nifty 50. So whatever the levels I'm saying, that all will remain to Nifty only. I'm not focusing on, or I'm not giving to Sensex. That is some other reason why I do not focus on that. So Nifty has come down around 7,500. But what happened? Within 4 months, March to this August, we are back to 11,640. So what good has happened to the economy? Nothing has happened. Then why the market is going up? Because of the liquidity which is coming to the system, which is coming from foreign institutional investor, which is coming from the domestic institutional investor. In the March, LIC has invested a huge amount in our stock market. GIC has invested a huge market in stock exchange. And few days back, LIC declared that during this period, they have earned a money of 10,500 crores. That is the money they are getting into with this liquidity. But what will happen now? Tomorrow, the result of Q1 of this, but dear students, Q1 means quarters. Quarter 1 stands for April to June. So the Q1 result is coming tomorrow. And what is happening? Your GDP is down, rock bottom. The government doesn't have money. They have asked the state government to borrow because they do not have money to pay the salaries. So that side, demand side will go down. And then you will have the further down the strength of the economies also. There are a lot of MSMEs who are not performing. They are on the verge of closure. So the economy will have pain. So this market will come down in the month of October last and the November first week around 9,500. And from there, it may, and if God forbid, if I'm knowingly using the God forbid, although I have no inclination towards Mr. Donald Trump, but if Mr. Donald Trump lose the elections in the US, your stock market will hit around 6,500 because whatever the liquidity which is coming to our system will go back. Why this is happening? You will study two concepts in finance. One is called risk, another is called return. Any investment we put in, we weighing our risk, how much risk is there. And then we want that how much return is coming. If risk is less, return is more, we put the money in. If it is opposite, we withdraw our money. So till the risk is there, I will not put my money in. When I'm able to earn more money than the risk, I will put my money into the system. Clear? So that is what is going to happen. So what is happening when this pandemic is spanning out further? It is already across the India. You have got 77,000. Raghav, being from the medical field, knows better that how and when this vaccine is going to come and how it will be given to all. So I heard that, I feel in my opinion, that it is a herd immunity which will save you. It is not the vaccine which is going to save you, because even if the vaccine comes, it will not be given to all. And so easily it will not be available to all, and many person may not be afford it also. So it is the herd immunity which is going to save you. When the herd immunity is going to save you, it will automatically have an impact on the way you are doing the business. So the return will come down in the economy. You have got the job losses. You have got the technology-driven new sectors are coming up where employment will not be there. That is another condition. The companies which are growing and which will grow, they will not have the job requirement because the one person will be more than enough in many companies to work. And that is why the you people will be having a tougher time and have to have more skill set which are required in this world. 10 years back, when I was a student, or 20 years back when I was a student, if somebody would have asked me, Anurag, there will be a hotel, chain of hotels without hotel buildings, I would say, no, it cannot be done. If you want to have a hotel company, you need to have hotels. But today you have got the Oyo hotels. They do not own a single hotel. If you want to have a cab company, you need to have car. But today you have Ola and Uber. They do not own up a car, but they are a very big business. So now the students are coming up with the Zomato. They do not own a restaurant, but they are doing a very good business. But how many people are employed with that? With the ratio that you need to check it. So more and more the robotics coming into the system, AI is coming to the system, and the machine learning is coming to the system, your skill set will start getting changes. I'm only saying, giving reference to the stock market. In a stock market, in a broker firm, there are more than 10 to 15 in an average office of a broker will have a students or the persons who are punching the orders of investors. But this AI, what will happen? They do not need any person. In evening, one Excel sheet and can be uploaded. Whatever the price is given, automatically all will be executed when the market comes at that level. So those job will also vanish. So you have to increase your skill set at that level where you will be in analysis position, where you need to interpret the information. That is going to help you. So Indian stock market is having, is not representing the economy at all. It is just moving on the liquidity basis, which is coming from domestic institutional investors and from the foreign institutional investor. So when these things, reports will be bad, these two will vanish. And who will be left into the market? Retail investor. So it will come down. Now, the side of the economy which is helping this, the government, yeah, please, Vannaji, tell me when I need to stop. Being a professor has a bad habit of speaking more. So Lavanya, just bache, give me a hint. Sir, you need to wind up. I will finish it off immediately. So what happens that when you have this economy, again, I'm referring to the Y equal to C plus I. Consumption is of two types. One is domestic, another export, which is known as foreign exports. So you are exporting because this particular pandemic is across the globe, and that is why it is treated as a black swan event. In India and the globe, the black swan event took place before this only 1920. So after 1920, you are having this one. And even in 2008 subprime crisis also, economy was not put to a halt. It had just contracted a bit. Nothing else has happened. Other economy was doing, businesses were doing good. It is only that the economy has contracted a bit due to the subprime crisis. Nothing else more than that has happened. And so we will manage that well by providing the liquidity into the rural areas, by Manrega schemes, and by giving the more money to that system. But what has happened today, whole world is under this threat, but this is giving an opportunity for India also. When this pandemic hit the globe, many stores in America went empty. There was no material was there because China was suffering under this COVID-19 situation. So they were not able to export anything. Because they were not able to export anything, so that is why America was not having any goods to sell on that. Their stores were empty. So now they want to improve their supply chain management, and in the supply chain management, they want to alternative. Samsung already has a business in Gurgaon, this Noida. Apple is trying to come up to India. There are many other companies who are trying to come into India. So for that purpose, Indian government has to put the money for putting this infrastructure on the right path so that infrastructure can be developed. When this infrastructure need to be created by the government, many times I hear from the persons, they say, from where the government will get the money? Students, there is a unique difference between the borrowing capacity of households and the borrowing capacity of the government. We can borrow only when we have the paying capacity. Government can borrow even without having a paying capacity. So in the time of crisis, it is the government who should start borrowing a huge amount and should put the money into the system, increase the liquidity into the system, and whereby the demand will generate and it will go up. I just quote Professor Keynes. Economics students must have heard about Professor Keynes. British Queen once asked in the Great Depression time from the Professor Keynes, what to do in order to improve this economy. He said, ma'am, we need to give £1 to every worker, every person every day, and that will solve the problem. She said, what we will do with this by getting? Ask them to dig a hole and fill it. So she said, it is not unproductive. He said, it is not unproductive. The £1 which is given to them, that will be used by them to purchase the bread and butter, which will bring in the demand, and the economy will revive over a period of time. And if you remember, this was a statement used by Dr. Manmohan Singh Parliament also.
Yes, sir.
Clear?
I'm sure, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, sir, I really understand how the times are changing, and now even we need to adapt to the changing times, especially as students. And I had one question relating to the share market. So now that savings on FDs and PPFs are also reducing, right? And normal people are looking to invest into the share market. So what do you think will be the right time to get into investing, and some do's and don'ts that you would like to highlight for somebody who is fairly new?
Okay. First thing, there is no right time in the stock market to invest, and there is no bad time in the stock market to invest. When the stock market goes down or goes up, you are not buying the stock market. You are buying the stock. Okay, you're buying the share of a company. Even the share of the company will go even the bad time also. So you need to find out undervalued stock. So first, try to understand the stock market, then put the money. That is the first requirement for any person. The second, when you are investing into the stock market, always invest that money which you do not need for at least next 3 years. If you need the money within next 3 years, please avoid going to the stock market at all. Third, you should have your own story for investing into the stock market, because you are investing your money. You have your own vision. Do not invest when somebody says to you, like some broker says, put the money into this stock or put the money into that stock. Never do that. Pawanji, he is here from the Times of India. Doval sahab, please avoid media persons.
No, nice learning. Now I'm going to keep all my money in my cupboard, and neither in the bank nor in the stock market.
Ma'am, you should diversify your money. Put your money into bank also, mutual funds. Because if you do not know the market, put the money into the market through the mutual funds.
No, very right. Very right.
And that to be diversified. Do not put all money in one place. All eggs should not be in one basket. That is. And PPF is good. You can put in money, but only some money, not complete money there, because then you will not be able to
withdraw.
I just forget to miss one more point. Ma'am, I will take only 2 minutes more.
Yes, I think we are running short of time. Please continue.
Students, the most important thing which is changed today, and which can make you the entrepreneurs, that is that your risk has been taken over by the government and RBI. And it is not happening in India, it is happening across the globe. Because we are today having the interest rate in the negative territory. Real interest rate in negative territory. Interest rate is, say for example, you are getting in the deposits, it's just 4%. And the loan you are getting at 7 and 8 or 10%. Inflation is already 9-10%. So virtually you are not paying anything. And in US and in the Japan, it is already negative in absolute terms also. So you need to determine again the risk and opportunity and return again in the new parameter, new economy environment. That is what is going to help. And more you can learn through, I have my some of videos on internet. You can go through that also. Yeah. Anything else you want to know, students?
No, but thank you very much for the advice, and we will be sure to, remember that once we start investing in the share market.
Yeah, that is very.
Our next speaker is Miss Aarti Arora, ma'am. She is a chartered accountant who is currently working as a financial consultant with the National Highway Authority of India. Ma'am, would you kindly enlighten us about the state of infrastructure and how it has been impacted by the COVID pandemic?
Thank you, Arushi. Thank you, Vivian, for giving me this opportunity. So I'll be giving a presentation on impact of COVID on the infrastructure sector as a whole, the revival package, and the new So I'll start with the presentation. So infrastructure sector as a whole can be broadly categorized into two categories, can be broadly divided into two categories. First is the social infrastructure and the economic infrastructure. Social infrastructure is basically for the social development of a country, and it includes educational institutions, housing facilities, hospitals, etc. And economic infrastructure is basically for the economic growth of the country, and it includes road transportation, communication, energy, power, etc. So the majorly impacted social infrastructures are the first is this, I'll take up school and educational institution. The most vulnerable section of our society, the school going children, are the worst hit by COVID-19 because of their age. The students in the urban private schools are continuing with the education through the digital platform. However, for the millions of students who do not have access to the platform, the digital platform, the COVID has brought education to a complete halt. The teachers are finding the innovative ways, to teach the students as the physical contact is no longer possible. Schools are facing cash crunch and survival woes. Similar is the situation with the higher educational institutions. Then the hospitals, the COVID warriors, the heroes of the pandemic, we can't thank them enough for what they are doing in this situation. The healthcare facilities that are the epicenter of the pandemic, the pandemic is likely to have an adverse cost effect on the health centers also. The pandemic has decreased the surgeries, international patients, and OPD footfall. It will in fact impact the cash flows of hospitals as 80% of the costs are fixed. That apart, the crisis has hit the medical device industry really hard. Then the impact of COVID-19 on the economic infrastructure. First is, I'll take up the transport. Transportation sector has been one of the primary victim of COVID-19. Right from the rickshaw pullers to airlines, all have been affected economically by the pandemic due to mobility restraints. Public sector transport is still not operational in most of the cities. Then the energy or power sector. The Indian power and utility sector, which is usually resilient, is also reeling under the impact of peak consumption, as the peak consumption has dipped more than 25% in April and 14% in May, despite lockdown being eased in many areas. Energy demand has dipped sharply as nearly 1/3 of the global population has stayed indoors. Supply, which usually was surpassing requirements and thereby putting pressure on the prices, have now been deeply impacted by the demand fall. This sudden dip in revenue and cash collections have left most Indian energy companies financially imperiled. Then the road infrastructure. The highway developers and toll operators are likely to incur toll revenue losses of about 3,700 crores during March to June this year, while NHAI may lose nearly 2,200 crores in toll fee. Then NHAI had planned for raising 80,000 to 85,000 crores through fiscal 2025 by monetizing 6,000 kilometers of operational public funded toll roads. This asset monetization program through TOT and InvIT is likely to take a hit. In addition to the loss in toll revenue, stakeholders will suffer losses on account of accrued interest, increase in cost of under construction projects, time overrun, and rise in disputes between private sector and the government authorities. Then the next is the telecommunication sector. This sector is in spotlight these days. Remote working, video conferencing, telecommunication technology have quickly emerged as a key enablers for business operation during this lockdown. And streaming services like Netflix has become go-to source for entertainment. The Ministry of Home Affairs had acknowledged the importance of having a strong telecommunication network in the guidelines that it had given, which stated that telecommunication, internet services, broadcasting and cable services, IT and IT-enabled services are the essential services and are exempt from the lockdown. Overall, the traffic has jumped by 10% and streaming platforms had witnessed a 20% spike in viewership. Hence, the telecommunications sector is the golden child of this economic slowdown, we can say. Then there are some revival package that government has introduced. First is the Atmanirbhar Bharat COVID-19 relief package, which was announced by the Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitaraman in May 2020. The total amount worth of this package is rupees 20 lakh crores, which includes the already announced 1.7 lakh crore relief package or Pradhan Mantri Gramin Kalyan Yojana for the poor to overcome difficulties caused by the coronavirus pandemic and the lockdown imposed to check its spread. The Prime Minister announced that an Atmanirbhar Bharat or a self-reliant India should stand on 5 pillars: economy, infrastructure, 21st century technology-driven arrangement and system, demand, and vibrant demography. This package, which is worth 20 lakh crores, is almost 10% of the GDP of the economy. The package lays emphasis on the labor, land, liquidity, and laws. So the new normal now. So this webinar that we are having is the new normal now. Pre-COVID, we would have attended a seminar instead of a webinar, I guess. So technology is no longer an option. It is a way of life. Innovation is the key. COVID has made us to do some out-of-box thinking. Virtualization of core areas and digitalization will witness a dramatic rise, which will help save time and cost. Tourism has also started attracting people through virtual tours, which are of course free. Office culture will change. Work from home will be a new in. People may offer homeschooling, and of course digitalization may help to impart education to even the remotest of area, which in turn may help in removing illiteracy in India. Cybersecurity, healthcare, manufacturing will gain prominence. There will be increased focus on mental and physical health. Vocal for local is gaining momentum. There's a huge increase in local apps, local kirana stores, local artisans and brands. Consumer would prefer making purchases online and opting for home deliveries, which Dr. Agnihotri also said. Emphasis will be on saving for a rainy day, which has taken a back seat in the rush of acquiring luxuries. More emphasis will be on necessities than on luxuries. There will be no need for discussion about lack of time with family or work-life balance. The importance of these have been brought home literally. So, as they say, together we shall overcome, and then soon this shall too pass. So, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Just like you said, you summarized the new normal, and that summary was fantastic, and we learned a lot. So, ma'am, I have a question. Like, as you all know, that the migrant workers have all gone back home, and there has been a decline in the roads and the bridges construction activity. So, ma'am, do you think that there will be cost escalation because of this? And do you think that the heavy rains have already made the matters worse?
See, highway developers faced labor issues during lockdown, no doubt, but that alone does not account for the cost, increase in the cost of the project. There are other factors also, like non-availability of raw material as steel, and cement industries also are not working, are not operational. Then there is loss of revenue due to loss of tolling fee, and that has, that adds to the cash flow of the company, and that in turn increases the liability as they are unable to pay, make repayment for loans, interest, etc. So all these factors together leads to will lead to the to increase in the cost of the project basically. So yes, cost of the projects will increase, no doubt.
Okay, ma'am. And ma'am, I also wanted to know that according to you, how long do you think will it take for the infrastructure to recover from the blow which it received because of the COVID-19 pandemic?
See, as far as highways are concerned, I just said that I discussed that the highway developers are, incurring a loss of 3,700 crores, and NHI may lose 2,200 crores. They are expected to lose this amount, and the recovery of this amount will take a long time, maybe few years. But on the same, but at the same level, the government has introduced some relief packages, to overcome these losses, basically for the concessionaires. Wherein suppose for a new project, concessionaire is unable to pay the performance security. So this all is included in the Atmanirbhar package. This all reliefs have come under that. So there is a waiver of interest with respect to delay in the payment of performance security, or where there is a loss of toll revenue, or where there's loss of the construction work has stopped because of the pandemic. The government has allowed extension in the concession period for say 3 or 6 months, depending upon the situation at the site. So yeah, I mean, it will take time as far as construction is concerned, and as far as toll revenues are concerned, maybe by the end of the third fiscal, things will be normalized, and say by December or by November, December end. So
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you as well.
Thank you.
So our next speaker is Mr. Pankaj Toval. Mr. Pankaj Toval, senior editor with the Times of India, leads the coverage and efforts on the consumer sectors such as automobiles, telecom, and electronics. He also writes extensively on policy matters in areas such as telecom, information technology, and corporate affairs. I welcome you, sir. Sir, please brief us about the impact the lockdown is having on the manufacturing industries with regard to the employment situation and the GDP growth rate in India, please.
First of all, thank you, Lavanya, and thank you, Meenakshi ma'am, the principal, to the teachers and all the students of Birla Vidya Niketan for calling me here. Honestly, one feels very excited to be, as Meenakshi ma'am said in the beginning, back to school. So thank you very much for calling us here, and let me congratulate the teachers of Birla Vidya Niketan. We've got 2 doctors over here. So at least for the first doctor, Mr. Taneja, I think Raghav, you've brought out a bright student, a very talented student, and honestly, it was a delight to listen to Raghav. He's very young, very talented, very bright, and kudos to the teachers and the principal of Birla Vidya Niketan, because we can see what you guys are doing and the way you're shaping up the students. So congratulations for that. And to the other doctor, I can only say tough luck, Dr. Anurag. It's very difficult to avoid journalists nowadays, but don't worry, journalists don't bite. I think you all have to coexist with each other, and we are in the business of acting as the 4th pillar and also informing, giving out information to one and everyone. Coming to the topic on hand, you've asked me about manufacturing. I think the biggest impact that we've seen because of coronavirus is actually just disturbed the growth. India is among the most populated country in the world after China, and it is a big consuming population in itself. And also, we have been making attempts to not only make in India, as we say, that's the slogan that our government has adopted, but we're also trying to broad base this and also looking at making make in India for India and also for the world. So because of Corona, what we've seen is that suddenly this growth momentum has been disturbed. We were talking about a double-digit growth in India. We were growing by 5%, 6%, 7%. And suddenly we are in a phase where we are talking about, going down in the negative. And this would be the first time for a full year, if we go down in the negative, it'll be the first time in roughly 4 decades that the Indian economy is going to slip into the negative. So in the first quarter, GDP numbers are yet not out, but, for this FY21, but there are fears that we may even slip by 20%, which is a huge, huge decline, but which is not unexpected because, we have seen that there was a complete lockdown in April. May, we gradually started to open up. Then May, June, what we've seen is we've opened up in certain areas, but then we've also seen sudden lockdowns being announced. So, there have been disruptions. Particularly speaking about manufacturing, there have been a few issues by which we have been impacted. And let me try and de-jargonize a lot of things. Maybe the teachers are best for doing that, but in whatever capacity I can, I'll try and do that. So first of all, it's all about capacities. When we set up a factory, for example, if I'm making 100 cars and the demand is robust, then I'll have a chance to not only utilize my existing capacity, but use the surplus that I'm making into increasing my capacity. And that is what the economic activity is about. I'm selling goods, people are buying goods, I'm using the profits and the other money that I'm making to expand. And so when I'm expanding, then I'm buying cement, I'm buying other kind of raw materials, and that is how the economy grows. So what has happened with all this is that our capacities have become excess because people are not buying. We are in a situation where jobs are being lost. The economy is contracting. Salaries have been cut. So the confidence level of the economy is actually at its lowest. People do not want to buy at this point in time because, generally we are all worried about what the future will be. Will there be jobs? Will the economy grow? How are we going to behave? So, people are in a conservation mode, or people, because of their natural constraints, because of job losses or salary cuts, people are not buying. So the industry is, actually facing a lot of overcapacity. I was speaking to somebody in the auto industry and they said that, we may have an overcapacity of roughly 50. I mean to say the underutilization of capacity will be 50%. So that means like if I have a capacity of 100,000 cars, I can only utilize 50% of that. So 50% is going waste. So all my fixed costs spent for that is going to go waste. So companies obviously are not going to hire, they're not going to invest new money, they're not going to borrow new money. So obviously this is not good for any kind of economy, especially for a growing economy like India. Secondly, when you talk about manufacturing, there are a plethora of other issues. Like there are restrictions in terms of how we operate. Even in schools, we've not even opened up the schools because of safety. Safety issues. In factories, while we have to open the factories because business has to continue, there are a lot of restrictions. You have to have masks. You need to have sanitization. You need to have social distancing when people are manufacturing. So you need to have gaps in between, where people are standing on the assembly line. So it is not business as usual. So those restrictions have increased the cost of manufacturing. I have to spend on sanitizers, I have to spend on PPE kits, I have to spend on so much of extra protocols. So my cost has gone up. Not only that, my availability of skilled labor has gone down. We saw a lot of people walking down when the Corona lockdown was announced. And so people have gone back to their villages or small towns or wherever. So that skilled labor has gone out of the, your industrial areas, and many of them have not come back. Many of them do not want to come back. Many of them are not able to come back. So we have overcapacity. We have shortage of skilled labor. Our costs have gone up. And the worst thing is that, we cannot pass this cost on to the market, because today, if Lavanya, somebody is going to tell your father that this car today costs 4 lakh and I'm going to sell you at 4 lakh, he'll say, no. What is the discount? So everybody is looking for deals, and people would not like to pay 4,50,000 for a car which till yesterday was 4 lakh. So the demand is not there. So companies actually have to discount more to get buyers to the market. So that is the situation. So manufacturing industry at this point in time is suffering from a plethora of issues. Though there are, as one would say, there are surprise pockets, there are surprise industries. which have been seeing growth. And, for example, these are very strange incidents, I would call it. For example, industries like your sudden, we've seen a sudden spurt in things like, dishwashers, for example. It's a very, very small part of our economy, but that industry is growing because people, how your house helps are not coming, so people are buying that. Or your vacuum cleaners, people are buying because who will clean the, the floors and all. So there are certain, very sporadic spurts in certain industries, but on the whole, we are facing a very, very tough situation. Sorry if it was a long answer.
Thank you, sir. So, sir, generally you were talking about manufacturing industries, and I was reading about how COVID might be a boon for the industries in India after COVID ends, because countries are now looking to shift reliance from China and look for cheap labor in other nations. So how do you think this will affect the Indian markets in manufacturing?
See, this is a topic which has been discussed not only now because of coronavirus, but even pre-coronavirus. We have been talking about Make in India. I think that was one of the first calls given by the Modi government that we need to harness this huge market that India is, because we are already a large consuming population, a big market. So any company would like to come and manufacture in a market where you have a large, strong home market. And when they are setting up big factories, then our aim is to provide them a market that also helps in exports. So, we've already seen China becoming very big in exports. China is known as the factory of the world. But, do not think that it's only China. We are also competing with Vietnam. Vietnam, let me give you an example. Samsung, the Korean electronics giant, sells goods roughly around $10 billion in India. $10 billion. In Vietnam, which is such a small country, if I'm not wrong, their manufacturing, overall manufacturing revenues would be in excess of $50-60 billion annually. So this is roughly 5 times of what we are doing, and that's a very small country. So I think India has been trying to do this kind of a thing where we are trying to tell companies to come and make in India for India, and make in India for the world. Obviously, after the coronavirus, what has happened is we've also had border tensions with China. Which have precipitated matters, because after Corona, what happened was that even pre-Corona, the US was in a trade war with the Chinese, and the US had said that let's make America great again. And why do we always need to buy from China? At the end of the day, what Trump to some extent said was also logical. That it is not right to outsource everything to countries outside the US and not have a strong manufacturing presence in US. So he spoke about the trade imbalance that US and China have, and Trump was always saying that let's make America great again. But what happened after coronavirus was this kind of a resistance to China actually got a leg up. So there were so many countries that said that we want to deleverage ourselves from China. We want to look at manufacturing locations beyond China, and that is where India fits in now. So we have announced a plethora of schemes. Madam mentioned about Atmanirbhar Bharat. It's a 20 lakh crore scheme. So we are a big push in that Atmanirbhar Bharat is given to MSMEs. These are medium, small, micro, medium, small industries, and these are the backbone of our economy, because we are basically our economy is comprising to a large extent of all these smaller companies, mid-sized companies, and all. And the government has said that we're going to give a major push to MSMEs in the Atmanirbhar scheme. We are looking at electronics. You guys, everybody is buying so much of mobile phones and electronic gadgets and all. And the government estimates that by 2020, our electronics imports, what we get from outside, could be to the tune of $400 billion. It's like today, if I just go by today's figures, $400 billion would be a huge amount of money. And that puts a lot of pressure on the foreign currency reserves that we have in India. So the government has said that we want to get the manufacturing in India. So the government has announced a new production linked incentive scheme, PLI. That's called the PLI scheme. And in that we are basically trying to give incentives for manufacturing mobile phones in India. It may sound a little gadgety, but mobile phones is a huge industry, huge industry. And so because of that, we've seen companies like Foxconn expand in India. Foxconn, there's a company called Pegatron, there's a company called Wistron. These are the big suppliers for not only Apple, they make Apple in China, in Taiwan, in so many markets, Apple devices. So Foxconn, Pegatron, Wistron, they have said that they want to expand their manufacturing base in India. Samsung has said it wants to increase its manufacturing capacity in India. And so have others like your domestic company, like a Micromax or your Lava or Dixon. There are a plethora of companies in India who have also said that we want to, expand in this way. So I think we will get there. It will take time. At the moment, China dominates, in terms of the whole ecosystem, as we say. You see the complete phone, but so many parts go into manufacturing a phone, and a lot of these parts are being made in small units in China, in Taiwan, in Vietnam. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the whole ecosystem over here. It's like not only your school is here, but you have other kind of support systems also in the vicinity. You have you have a good playground. You've got coaching for different kind of sports and this and that. So everything under one roof. So that is what we call that is what we call like creating an ecosystem, of manufacturing ecosystem, that you're not only making the finished product, not only assembling it, but also manufacturing, because the other suppliers are also in the vicinity. So
yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Principal ma'am, I am a student and I have been facing a lot of challenges due to the major education, changes that the education system has undergone. So, and like a lot of other students, I'm curious to know about how the management is dealing with all this. So now I request you, ma'am, to enlighten us about the current situation and how it has been impacted by the COVID-19.
All right. How is management handling the situation? You can't believe that suddenly when lockdown was announced and our new session was about to start, that is in March, we did not know about Zoom, we did not know about Microsoft Teams, and somebody told us Zoom is possible. So we all overnight trained our teachers, thanks to our computer teachers, who overnight, trained the rest of the teachers, approximately 200 in number, and we did not let the session suffer by a single day. So we came online. Yes, I agree, we made mistakes. We weren't very professional, but then the effort was there, and I would thank the parents and students also that they supported us hugely. Yes, education sector has been badly impacted, and according to the data with UNESCO, there are 290 million children out of school, and they also predict that around 24 million would never go back to school. So, and education is something which is the most important thing for the development of a country or the world by and large. So it's a sad statistics, but then that's how it is. And yes, children are struggling. It's not very interesting for students like you all, for teenagers and even younger children, because coming to school is not only for studying per se. Studying you are doing even now to some extent, but the coronavirus has put us into a situation which is exactly opposite the reason of the existing of the schools. Like in schools, there is a scope of social interaction. People come to school for socializing, social interaction, and sitting next to each other, touch, feel, eating each other's tiffins, and shouting at the other person, to some extent pulling the hair also when you all fight. But then, that's how children grow, and they get sensitized to each other's problems, because when you come to school, you see another child suffering or not happy for some reason, you are automatically learning things about life. So with this lockdown, all that has stopped. One thing good that is happening, which I hear, is that when I talk to you all, that the interaction amongst the families has gone up, because earlier nobody had time for each other. But now they are spending time with each other. And I can understand it is difficult for you all, because the kind of energy you all have, it needs to be vented out. You need to go out. You need to meet friends. You need to go out to the ground and play. You need to go to the gyms. You need to dance. Everything is so important for you all. But then you have no choice. And we have handled the academic part but we really don't know to what extent are we successful. Because we are teaching, teachers are working very hard, but the point is that we really don't know how many students are not learning. Because across the wall, you really don't know. Sometimes we tell children, turn on your camera. He's there, she's there, but turn on your camera. They don't. Give a reply. They don't. So we don't even know whether they are sitting there or they've gone out to, it's a proxy kind of attendance and they've gone out somewhere. So these are challenges which teachers also are facing. But then I think we have resorted to possibly the best we could. And for children, I would say, yes, you are going through a tough time, a time which is not very good for you all. But then, you know, the winners, as winners, you have to think differently. You have to learn to gain opportunities out of these challenges. Because after this, the world is going to change, the society is going to change. And you have to now observe that which way, like you heard to so many people, you heard to Pankaj, Aarti, Dr. Agnihotri, Raghav, they are all of the opinion that, you know, there's a change going to come in the society. That's a societal change. So it is important for you all to kind of observe, think that how is the world going to change? And, you know, you have to develop skills for yourself. You have to understand what's good for you. How can you grow during this time so that after 1 year, 6 months or whatever time COVID gets over, you haven't been impacted. You should be, in fact, the urban children are blessed that they have internet, they have devices and they can study. So you have to stop thinking that everybody is going through the same boat and everything. But trust me, when COVID gets over, it will not be 24th March 2020. It will not be 21st March 2020. It will be that date. The time would have moved on. And you have to prepare yourselves very wisely for that day when COVID gets over, and or not over, but lockdown is over and you're back to work, you're back to school, all that, and you are back to school with a bang. I don't want that you all are back to school with some of you having dented personalities, because challenges are huge. There are people with small houses. There are people where families have issues. So, but children, make yourself strong, think positively, let this COVID not affect your physical health, of course, but the mental health also. Be strong, talk to teachers, talk to your friends over phone, and look after yourselves. That is very important, because the calendar is moving, the dates are moving, the time is moving. And वो कहते हैं ना, जो जीता वही सिकंदर. So आप लोगों को सिकंदर बनना है. उसके लिए you have to learn to look after yourselves, contribute in family, in whichever way you can. Let the mental health of your parents also be good, because they are under huge stress. So that is one thing I wanted to say. And then you also asked how are the managements suffering or managing. Yes, we are into a very bad financial front, because the huge machinery, huge plant of the school. You all would agree that we have such a beautiful school, and we have very recently, in past 8-9 years, gave it a very different look, and it is very nice. But then, you know, we need money to run, and our taxes, our property taxes, electricity minimum bill and all, they have not gone. But we are not supposed to be taking fee, like those development fees and other things. So, and parents are not able to pay fee also. There are many of them that the COVID has hit them hard and they are not able to pay the fee, and our only source of income is fee. So the managements have been hit hard, But then, yes, we shall overcome.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm sure we all will return stronger than ever. And I also want to say that you told us that education is a necessity for the development of a country and a world as a whole. So, ma'am, we cannot ignore one more major change which has happened in the field of education. That is the introduction of the new education policy. So, ma'am, do you think that it was a wise decision on behalf of the government to introduce the new education policy in the midst of the pandemic?
Yes. Now, first of all, the policy has come. Now, policy is a guideline given by the MHRD. All right. Now, education is a matter of state. Now, states will study and states will determine that they want to implement this policy in which way. It is not that they have to follow it verbatim, number one. Number two, see, we can't wait. I mean, the last policy came 35 years back and everything has changed. And this COVID has changed the world more than any other thing also. So this policy is very progressive and it prepares us, it will prepare students to handle life in a better way. Atmanirbhar, vocational education, being able to earn money in different ways. I'm not necessarily everybody has to be an engineer, but then yes, you can be an entrepreneur. It focuses a lot on entrepreneurship also. So skill development, competency-based learning. So for that, we don't need COVID or not COVID, no COVID, but then that's a change of teaching methodology and which will, I think, prepare you all in a better way, in a stronger way for a better world tomorrow.
True, ma'am, very true. Ma'am, according to you, how long do you think will it take for the students and the teachers to adjust to the new education policy?
Teachers took one night to switch over to digital platform to teach 4,000 children in my school at least and all over the world. Students took maybe half an hour to adapt to that digital tool. So where is the doubt? Indian children are very, very, very smart and they will pick up things, and in fact, they are the ones who will take it forward and who will tell us, ma'am, aise nahi, aise karo to zyada acha hoga. And look, we have a bright spark sitting here, Raghav Taneja. He has made the school so proud. And so he was like one of you. There's no doubt. You all will take the world with that force, energy, and Dr. Agnihotri ne to bahut daraya hai कि ये पैसा नहीं होगा, ये नहीं होगा, but then we will come out with a bang. Yes, it is a tough situation, but it will overcome. We will overcome.
Yes.
Stay positive. Stay positive. Don't let that negativity get into you. Stay focused. अपनी पढ़ाई करो, अपना काम करो. Think about yourself that how can you be a better student and how can you find opportunities in this mess also.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. And I'm very, very sure that me and my fellow batchmates and the schoolmates will follow the path shown by you and other teachers. This concludes today's session. I would like to thank all the panelists who took out time from the busy schedules to enlighten us and satisfy our questions, which have until now been unanswered. We thank our teachers for the valuable input and guidance. And I sincerely hope that we all will soon emerge from this pandemic with the least possible damage. I once again conclude by thanking everybody present here.
And I want to add on one thing. These are not panelists. These are family members.
Yes.
Their parents and our own students. So for us, it's family. And thank you so much, everyone, for adding value to this seminar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.